Hi, we're the Practical Dreamers. I'm Adam.
I'm Charlene. We're so glad that you're tuning in today. We decided to, instead of just doing all of our blog in writing, we decided to do a vlog, I think is what the kids are calling it
The hip
these
kids.
days.
Yeah.
So hopefully you like to see our mugs here.
Let's hope so. If not, I guess you can just kind of blank out the screen and just listen to our voices like a podcast.
It could be worse though. But, but what we wanted to do is just do, a short video to kind of go into depth on some of the questions that we have been writing for the Come Follow Me curriculum that you can find on our blog. This week, as we know, the Come Follow Me curriculum goes through Monday through today and in the New Testament. So what we still wanted to focus on that before getting into next week. So the one section that we're going to get to in this short video starts in Matthew chapter 13, verses 54 through 56.
Yes. So I'll read it. When he was come, meaning Jesus, when he was come into his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, insomuch that they were astonished, and said, Whence hath this man this wisdom, and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James and Joseph, and Simon and Judas, and his sisters, are they not all with us? Whence then hath this man all these things?
All right, so those are the verses. If you want to take a look at them for yourself, that's fine. Maybe you have already, and we do have those hyperlinked on our blog if you want to use that. But so the question that we kind of wanted to discuss today is kind of twofold. That why is it hard, or why might it be hard to believe that the carpenter's son could be the Messiah? So that's kind of the first part. And what I was thinking, a couple of my thoughts. First was, I feel like as humans, we're, at least me, I'm the practical part of the dreamers, but I tend to be a skeptic. But I feel like a lot of people are very skeptical and feel like it's, don't try to sell me something, right? Mm-hmm. We see a ton of the multi-level marketing, and people there's a lot of sales going on the internet, and it's like, oh, you have a great recommendation for me. Oh, but you make a commission on it. Just kidding. Like, oh, it sounded great right until then. So I feel like there's this natural inclination to be skeptical, to want recommendations from people you trust, but then jump to not trusting them. Mm-hmm. So it's like this idea of, was Jesus here in this tiny little place, was he so familiar that people couldn't get past that familiarity of like, wait a second, I'm not going to trust this person.
Yeah, it's this almost sort of, somebody selling me something is not necessarily suspicious unless I know them, and then it's like sketchy, as if it's not always somebody trying to profit off of us. Yeah. So they're doubting Jesus's motives, maybe. Mm-hmm. There's another angle as well that I wanted to talk a little bit about, and that I found really interesting. So there was a great piece in the Times and Seasons blog by Mary Gray, who actually lives in Jerusalem, and it's called The Divine Christ and the Human Jesus. And one of the things she talks about in that piece is that we often don't realize just what Christ's economic condition would have been. Nazareth, for lack of a better word, was like a podunk town back in the day. They're just a very, very poor part of that general region. And in fact, this isn't in that blog, but archaeologists say that there was probably 150 people in this settlement back in the day.
Smaller than your ward.
Yeah, seriously.
Or at least maybe the people that go. But
so, people, show up every Sunday. So very, very small, very, very poor. This is probably why Nathaniel, when he hears about Jesus of Nazareth being the Messiah, why he says, can any good thing come out of Nazareth, right? So people look down on Nazareth, which probably means even people from Nazareth look down on Nazareth, right? You're saying that the Messiah is coming from our podunk tiny little village. Mm-hmm. Not only that, this whole business of he's the carpenter's son. Carpenter can kind of have a range of meaning. That word tekton that is in the Greek, that more recent scholarship says that probably it would be better to say like a craftsman or a builder. And Mary Gray even says kind of like a day laborer. So if you think about that, like a day laboring construction worker that's sort of working freelance construction or something, and then he's saying he's the Messiah, right? Mm-hmm. Just with how prejudiced human beings can be in terms of how we view different classes and occupations, you can imagine how that's probably not the form people expected the Messiah to come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just kind of piggybacking on that, again, it's not true, but I feel like sometimes we have this preconceived notion of like, you know, an intelligent person clearly is going to go to college. An intelligent person,
it's like prejudice against the trades.
Yeah, they're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a professor. You know what I mean? They're going to do those things that are very cerebral, that require those types of things, when you're totally discounting the absolute necessity and difficulty of all of these, like you said, all these trades and all these forms of things that are absolutely necessary for all of our survival.
Yeah, exactly. That actually allow us to live as human beings and require a tremendous amount of knowledge to do that. But yeah, Jesus worked with his hands, right? Yeah. Jesus worked with his hands. He was kind of like a construction worker, and so they probably judged based on that.
Yeah. And kind of just moving from there, another thought that I had was, you know, why do they have this issue with the carpenter's son being the Messiah? It's that expectation versus reality. Don't we get like caught up in our expectations all the time? You know, I feel like my life was ruled by that for a lot of, you know, especially teen years and close to there. But, you know, if you want royalty, where does royalty come from? Royalty, right? You know, aren't they, you know, they're in England, you know, they're born into it. It's in their blood. It's, they don't come from a tiny little town and they're a builder or a or a carpenter.
Yeah.
Our 3-year-old.
Yeah, you can hear a toddler in the background.
But
sorry, that was a brief pause for our toddler.
Work? Yeah. Oh, okay. This is the first time we're doing this. So
still working this out.
Yeah, so the idea of just like expectation versus reality, for whatever reason, like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, you get this idea in your head of like, oh, you went to school for this is your experience, so stay in your lane. So you can't have an opinion on something else because you don't have this random piece of paper from this random university. You know what I mean? Yeah. These universities. So, I mean, obviously that's our time period.
But to make it sort of comparable to what we experience, and it's sort of, would they have responded differently if he had been sort of in the governor's mansion, right? If he had been Herod Antipas declaring himself the Messiah, or would they have, well, would be odd, but you get what I'm saying, or would they have responded differently if he was the high priest? He was of a royal lineage, but it's not as if he was sitting in a palace somewhere. It's not what they expected.
Yeah, and I think that kind of also contributes to, I think he obviously did that on purpose, right? How much easier would it have been if he had matched the expectation for people to believe that.
But would it have been sincere at that point?
Yeah, and would it have been their faith? You know, because it had to be based on their faith.
Yeah, and, you know, that kind of relates to another point I was thinking about too, which is basically how we oftentimes, probably part of the issue with familiarity here, as, you know, verse 56 implies and 55, they knew his family, right? It's this tiny little community, and I wonder if that would have been, no family's perfect. Obviously, Mary and Joseph were incredible, I think, foreordained people for what they did, but they're still human beings, right? And so I'm sure Joseph and Mary had their own human foibles. I'm sure all of Jesus' siblings had their own human foibles, and so how easy would it have been for people to say, oh, that family? You mean the one that I caught, you know, squabbling in the market one time? That's where the Messiah is coming from? Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. And then just kind of with that, just feeling potentially like, do we become desensitized to spiritual experiences? You know, for somebody, if they had gone through their whole life, you know, born into the church, raised in the church, was the quote-unquote Peter priesthood or Molly Mormon, you know, if they've always felt the Spirit, do they know what it's like to not have the Spirit? You know, so do they just expect spiritual experiences? Do they not recognize them? You know, that could be for me as well. So I'm just saying, you know, what we can learn from that and from these types of questions, and maybe why people might not recognize the Savior, and what we can kind of do in our own lives to be able to recognize these spiritual experiences and to recognize when Christ does come again.
Yeah, very much so. So that's really, I think, what we had to share, honestly. We'd love to hear your comments, please. So please tell us, what do you think? Why was the carpenter's son? Why was that such an issue? Why were people having such an issue with that?
Yeah.
We love getting into the scriptures with you. Thanks for listening to us on this first vlog.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. But
Bye.
Bye.